Okay, السلام عليكم مرة أخرى. We are sorry for interrupting the video. Okay, as you know, I'm a father and I have kids playing around, so I'm sorry for that. So just go on, carry on. We talked about verbs that can have double meanings. Okay, some phrasal verbs do exhibit this kind of aspect or characteristic. They can be used in different contexts and they mean different things. Right, now we move to another characteristic, which is that some phrasal verbs are separable. Now, normally the majority, okay, this is number 2, okay, separable phrasal verbs. The majority of phrasal verbs are separable. What does it mean? It means that we can separate the verb and the particle in a sentence, okay, separable phrasal verbs, okay. So as I said, up to 90% of English phrasal verbs, they can be separated, okay. For instance, take an example, okay, it's cold, for instance, and I must put on a jacket, or I must put a jacket on. So, put on a jacket. In this case, it's not separated. Or, put a jacket on. Same thing, for example, fill in an application form, or fill an application in. Okay, so here the verb and the particle are separated. Same thing here, the verb and the particle are separated, whereas in here they are put together. Okay, so this is again, as I said, another characteristic of phrasal verbs. But there is something that you have to know, that these verbs which are separable are by nature, they are transitive. What does it mean? Transitive. It means they take an object. Transitive. Okay, so take an object. Take an object. And it's a direct object. For example, here, put on what? Put on what? Put on a jacket. Something, same thing. Fill in what? Fill in an application. So they always need an object, and that's why they call them transitive. Now what happens sometimes in speaking, we just replace the object by a pronoun. Say, for example, instead of saying fill an application in, we just say fill it in. Same thing, put it on. Okay? So most of the time it's like this, okay? One way or one technique to become fluent in English is to use pronouns instead of the object, okay? Now we move to a few, to one category of phrasal verbs which do not exhibit this kind of, or this sort of characteristic, which are the opposite, meaning you can never ever separate the verb from the particle. So they are what we call inseparable or non-separable phrasal verbs. Okay, this is the third characteristic. Take, for example, any example. For example, dine out. Okay. Take another example. Is for example, for instance, I have my list of verbs in here. So non-separable, yes. Look after. Okay, we'll give an example. Take, for example, takes off, in the second meaning of take off. Okay. For example, you can just say, today we're going to dine out. So there is no way that you can separate the verb from the particle. For example, she is a working, career woman, and she is not free all the time, so she needs someone to look after her kids. You can never say to look her kids after. Okay. Same thing. The plane takes off. There is no object, so you can never separate the verb from its particle. Okay. Right. Now we move to the third characteristic. Okay, characteristic number 3. Sorry. Which is that some phrasal verbs they take an additional verbs that take phrasal verbs that take an additional preposition or particle, an additional preposition. Okay, for example, put up with. Okay, example, make up for. Okay, so she said she can't put up with the noise in the city and she prefers to live in the countryside. To put up means to tolerate. Okay, so because she is very sensitive, okay, she cannot put up with the noise in the city. Some teachers cannot put up with the noise in the classroom. Okay, right. Now make up for. Make up for means to substitute or to try to make a compensation, to compensate for. Make up for. Okay. For example, she is always trying to make up for her mistakes. Okay, she makes a mistake and she tries to make up for that. Okay, to compensate for that. Right. So as you can see, there are so many. These are the many phrasal verbs that exhibit different characteristics. Now, the best way, as I said, to learn these verbs is through using them in context. That's why, for instance, in the day of the exam, the students are being given or are given kind of sentences that exemplify or that give them a kind of context that you can use to guess the correct phrasal verb. So